All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jane Barr. I am a registered dietitian. I have a master's in public health, and I work out of Wellesley Hospital. I sit in the cardiovascular center. I don't see patients anymore. A lot of people ask me if I still do. I have graduated away from seeing patients, but let me know if you want me to talk louder, because I can be really loud. I have 3 kids, so. So I sit in the cardiovascular center and I report to the chief of cardiology, and I do a lot of these programs in the community thanks in part to the Community Collaborative at the Newton Wellesley Hospital. The Community Collaborative has 8 councils that is sponsored through donations, and the Heart, Health, and Wellness Council is the council I'm on, as well as the Elder Council. So they allow me to be able to provide these programs in the community free of charge to all the senior centers in our service area. So big thank you. If anybody is on those councils or donates to those councils, that's a big thank you. I'm going to get started today. The name of this lecture that I think everybody must like is the Diet and Chronic Disease Connection. And I'm just going to start by talking a little bit about what is chronic disease, right? Like, it's great to throw a bunch of terms at you, but I like to make sure they're defined and you understand them. Oh, I'm looking at Priya. Before I go any further, I want to introduce that I have an intern with me. Her name is Priya. She's from Waltham High School. She's actually a graduate of Waltham High School, and she's going to UMass Amherst in the fall. So go, Priya. So back to the lecture at hand, chronic disease. What is chronic disease? Chronic disease is a long-lasting health condition that requires medical attention and actually can affect your daily life. So a good example are right here. Right here on this page, we have the most prevalent chronic diseases in the US. Can anybody guess? Hypertension. How many people do you think have hypertension in the US? Anybody want to make a guess?
A lot. 40%. About 60%.
60% is a good one. I heard it though. What is 40%? It's 48%. So 48% of people are walking around with high blood pressure or hypertension. So has anybody ever heard high blood pressure called the silent killer?
Yeah.
Do you know why it's called that? Because you don't know you don't have any symptoms. You can have very, very dangerously high blood pressure and never know it because you don't have any symptoms at all. And what does really high blood pressure lead to? It can lead to a stroke. It can lead to heart disease, so it can be very debilitating. So one of the ways you combat hypertension is just always getting your blood pressure checked. And I think you guys are lucky here. You have a nice nurse who comes and does free blood pressure checks. Does everybody take advantage of that? So if you haven't had your blood pressure checked in a while, it's a really good idea to get it checked so that you know your numbers. That's one of those numbers you should always know, because if it starts to creep up, you can actually do lifestyle changes to maybe get it back in check, and we're going to talk more about that. But you have to be able to track those numbers and know those numbers. Has anybody gone to the doctors and had their blood pressure checked and never been told what the number was? So I always, you have to be your own health advocate. So if you go to the doctors and they take your blood pressure and they don't tell you that number, make sure you ask. And then push them a step further and say, so is that normal? Is that high? Should I be concerned about that? So make sure you know that number. The other chronic disease I'm going to focus on right now is heart disease. So coronary artery disease is the main form of heart disease that's most prevalent. 1 in 20 adults have heart disease. So that's a pretty big number. And that is it is the #1 killer in our country. A lot of people think cancer is, but it's really heart disease. So heart disease is, again, one of those things you can walk around with and really have no symptoms of. So what are the numbers you need to know for heart disease? Does anybody have an idea?
Beats per minute.
What was that?
Beats per minute.
Beats per minute. So that would be more like your heart rate. So your heart rate could be off. If your heart rate is off, you could have something called AFib, which is a form of heart disease. I was thinking more of a blood test that you should be getting every time you go to the doctor for your annual physical. Cholesterol. And you should know your total. You should know your HDL and your LDL. The HDL is that good cholesterol. I call it your happy cholesterol. It should be high, and the reason for that is it acts as a snowplow in your arteries, and it actually collects the bad cholesterol as it goes through and helps get rid of it out of your body. So that's why you want a lot of HDL. That happy cholesterol is healthy. It's good for you. The LDL is the bad cholesterol. We call that lousy. It should be low, because that's the stuff that is really sticky. It sticks to the sides of your arteries, and it causes that plaque and buildup that causes heart attacks. So that's the number you want to be nice and low. Another chronic disease that we can combat with lifestyle changes in diet is obesity. Anybody know what the latest statistic is on obesity in this country?
60%.
60%.
It's actually lower than that. It's 43 when I looked it up most recently. So that's good, right? That's a little better news than what we might have thought. Obesity is defined as a body mass index of 30 or greater. But when you work as a dietitian, you know BMI doesn't work for everybody, because it's very different depending on how big your frame is and what your muscle structure is. So in addition to body mass, you want to look at your waist circumference. Your waist circumference is really important for men and for women, because we know as health professionals that we carry visceral fat in our abdomen, and it's that visceral fat in your abdomen that leads to heart disease and other chronic diseases. That means that you have fat building up on your arteries, and we know that's not good. So if you have a waist circumference that puts you at risk, puts you into the obesity category, that's something to be concerned about. So again, when you go to the doctor, you can always ask about these things. And then cancer, the uncontrolled growth of abnormal cells. We've heard a lot about cancer in the news. Unfortunately, 38% of people will have some form of cancer in their lifetime, so that percentage is really high. And we've heard most recently of younger people being diagnosed with more gastric cancer. And gastric cancer is things like stomach cancer, intestinal cancer, and colon cancer. And the research is not complete yet, but there's some real good evidence right now that suggests that a lot of it might be related to, what do you think? Diet. So I consider you guys the lucky generation. You all grew up with a lot less processed food than we did. And the younger people who are in their 30s and 40s grew up on a lot more processed food, and that processed food we know is not good for us. And we know it sits in your gut for longer because it tends to be a lower fiber food, so it doesn't move through you very fast. And as it sits in your gut, nothing good happens there. The toxins get leached into your colon and into your intestines and your stomach. So it's really important to have a high fiber diet and try to really keep that processed food out of your diet, because like I said, you guys are the lucky generation. So, kind of think back to how you were raised. Think about the whole food that your parents served you. And think about how few times you went out to dinner as a child. And now think about what the kids of today do. It's very different. Our eating patterns have changed tremendously, and unfortunately it's not for the better. And it has led to some of that younger diagnosed cancer. And then, oh, sorry, go ahead.
In Europe, they have laws protecting the population against certain elements of processed foods. They only, I don't know what the numbers are. Why isn't that the case in the U.S.?
Because the food industry has a very strong lobby.
So the food industry can monetarily benefit from not informing us.
Right. So the food industry has got very strong lobbyists who spend a lot of money to keep the additives, because a lot of these additives that they've put in our foods are much cheaper alternatives. So it's cheaper for them to make, and I mean I've read different things about how more processed foods, they have scientists that create these foods so that they tickle the serotonin in your brain so that you are more likely to become addicted to them. I mean, there's not hard science on that, but it makes sense to me because the food industry is a very powerful industry. They have a lot of money. And that's why it's allowed in this country. But who knows, maybe things will change.
Hopefully.
We can all hope. So pre-diabetes and diabetes, as you have probably heard, this is on the rise in this country. 1 in 3 Americans now have either pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. And again, that's very closely linked to being overweight and obese. And that's very closely linked to that processed food. So we're kind of coming around here to a main theme. Does anybody hear my main theme? Diet. Yes?
Isn't there a link between the use of statins and prediabetes?
That's sort of above my pay grade. That's research that I haven't looked into, so that there could be a tenuous link. I'm not aware of it, but that's not really something I've ever looked into.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Statins raise the probability of getting diabetes.
So again, that's not really something I've looked into, so I'm not going to really comment on the use of statins because statins have a lot of positives. So that may be a negative, but I mean, there are certain people who, if they didn't have statins, they can't really live their lives. So statins have a lot of pros. Maybe there are some cons to it as well. But you know, when you talk to your health provider, you want to think about the whole picture of your life, not just like one drug. You know, if this drug may put you at risk for this, but it may allow you to live a longer, healthier, higher quality life. So, something to think about. So now that I've given you all the bad news, let's talk about the good news. The good news is that you can change your likelihood of getting some of these horrible diseases. You know, and what do you think you can do? One of the things you can do is really adopt a healthier lifestyle. And there's really good science behind the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet will help lower your risk of chronic disease. Yes?
You eat vegetables in the evening instead of red meat.
More vegetables, less red meat. I like it. You're on my train.
My wife's too.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's the other thing. Like we, you know, as Americans, that snacking in the evening, we could go down this whole rat hole. I'm going to try not to. But so in the evening, when you think about think about your youth. You weren't sitting around eating snacks at night watching TV. Like there just wasn't as much food available. We didn't eat as much food. And now we have a lot of food available to us. It comes in a lot of different yummy flavors and varieties. So it's more tempting and it's readily available. So we tend to eat more. And that eating at night is not good for us. We know that our bodies at night, they need time to rest and restore our cells. So if you are eating at night, right, very close to when you go to bed, your body is working really hard to digest that food. And if you're digesting and you're working to do that and storing, your body's not restoring itself. It's not repairing the cellular damage that was done to it throughout the day. So you're really depriving your body of that time that it needs to rest and restore. So that's a good reason to kind of maybe put the snacks aside or, you know, set a time for yourself, like 7, 8 o'clock, depending on what time you go to bed, but give yourself a good couple of hours to digest before you go to bed, so that when you go to bed, your body has that time to rest and restore.
Question.
Yeah.
So someone I live with doesn't sleep well and wakes up every few hours in the middle of the night and then eats snacks. If you are going to snack in the middle of the night, is there something that's better than something else? Not do it, but if you can't not do it.
Well, I mean, you know, if you're going to snack any time of the day, I would always encourage you to choose a healthy snack. A healthy snack is sort of, think about nature's perfect packages. I always say nuts are nature's perfect packages. They have fiber, they have healthy fat, and they have protein. That combination in your stomach actually is the best that your body can take, because that fat and that fiber slow down digestion. It gives the stomach enough time to send the message to the brain that you're full and to stop eating. So you eat less if you eat that combination, and also that fiber slows the uptake of your blood sugar. So your blood sugar rises nice and slowly instead of really fast. Because if it rises really fast with simple carbohydrates and sugar, it falls really fast. And we know that that is not good for you, those peaks and valleys in your blood sugar. You want to get a nice even blood sugar, so that protein and fiber with that healthy fat is a great combination. And if you're someone who can't eat nuts, you can achieve that with like a carrot stick and hummus. You could achieve that with a piece of cheese and when I say a piece of cheese, a whole, like I want to say whole cheese or non-processed cheese, and a whole 100% whole wheat cracker. But that's the combination you're looking for a healthy snack. I can tell I'm never going to get through this lecture, but that's okay. You asked me a question and I will talk forever. So the Mediterranean diet, though, the principles of it it's a lot of change for people, but if you can walk away from this lecture and take a couple of small changes, that's all I ask, a couple of small changes to get yourself closer in line with the Mediterranean diet, you'll be doing yourself a big favor, because small changes in your diet have big impacts on your health. So it can lower your risk for certain types of cancer, the metabolic syndrome we were talking about. And the Mediterranean diet, this is very important, contributes to the healthy gut microbiome in your digestive system. We know that's very closely tied to your immune system. So that healthy gut biome, so when I say that, people are like, well, what is that? How do you get that? So that's eating fiber, eating nuts and fruits and vegetables, so that you have the right gut, so you have the right prebiotics to create the probiotics that make a healthy gut biome to help feed your immune system. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But the Mediterranean diet has also had good science to show that if you follow that diet closely, it can actually slow the decline slowing the decline of brain function. So like if your brain slowing the decline of brain function, so like that's, dementia or Alzheimer's, those types of effects can be slowed by following this diet. And in long-term studies, they've showed that people who follow the Mediterranean diet actually live longer. So if that's your goal, listen up. And this is a handout, so you don't feel like you have to write this down furiously, but you can always take pictures of any of the slides. I'm just not allowed to give out my slides. So the principles of the Mediterranean diet are a little different than things that you may have heard in the past. They have things that you should be eating at every meal, and then things that you should be eating at least 3 servings per week. So at every single meal, that includes breakfast, you should eat a rainbow of fruits and vegetables, so at least 3 colors. And does anybody know why the colors are important?
Different vitamins.
Different vitamins, but also there are compounds in fruits and vegetables called flavonoids, polyphenols, and phytonutrients that we know reduce inflammation. And inflammation is the building block of all chronic disease, so you want to try to keep the inflammation in your body as low as possible. So trying to eat these 3 colors at every meal is a good way to do it. And then you want to include plenty of whole grains in every meal. So again, breakfast, how do you get a whole grain at breakfast? Maybe having some oatmeal. But you don't want to buy a packet of oatmeal because that's processed, right? Again, think back to when you were a kid and you had oatmeal. It's a slow cook, right? On the stove, 30 to 40 minutes. So that those old-fashioned oats or the steel-cut oats or the Irish oats are a better choice. They're less processed and they do take longer to cook, but they are a better choice because they're higher in fiber. So there's a big connection right there. So that higher in fiber, less processed.
I have a question. Do you have a good gluten-free alternative
to
whole grains?
To the whole grains? Yeah, well, there are plenty of grains that are gluten-free.
Right.
So like a quinoa, farro, buckwheat, things like that. I have a list on the next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how to do this in the next couple of slides. But the other thing that I really want to emphasize is the fact that you should really be eating extra virgin olive oil or a healthy fat at every meal. And so when you buy extra virgin olive oil, make sure it says on it first cold pressed, because that first cold pressed is really important, because if it doesn't say first cold pressed, it's not. And when they press it, when it's not, they have actually treated it. They could have treated it with chemicals, they could have heated it, and if you heat it and treat it with chemicals, you're ruining the omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids, all the fatty acids that are in there that you're looking for to benefit your health are going to be lost. So that first cold press is really important.
Speaking of olive oil, can you compare that to seed oils and linolenic acid?
So seed oils like a canola oil. So the seed oils have kind of gotten a bad rap. They also are unsaturated fats. They're the MUFAs versus the PUFAs, and they are an okay alternative for high heat cooking if you're doing a high heat cooking, because olive oil has a lower smoke point than say a canola oil does. They are more processed, and that's really the difference. So they're a more processed oil, so they do not have as many of the healthy fats.
What about avocado oil?
Avocado oil is perfect, or walnut oil if you can afford it. Those are two very expensive oils, and avocado oil has a higher smoke point, so if you're going to cook at a high temp, it's better to use the avocado oil.
Is it as healthy?
Oh, it's just as healthy, yes. Yep. It's a great choice. Yes?
What is there a benefit with cod liver oil?
So cod liver oil falls into the supplementation category, and the fish oils have gotten a lot of bad press because the bioavailability of the fatty acids in those cod liver oils and things is lower than it is in the natural food. So my first choice is to always get it with food, but if you're someone who doesn't get those things through food, then a supplement like that is a good choice. So that first cold press is important. So if you take one thing away and you go home and you look at your olive oil and you haven't been buying the right one and you switch it, that's a great way to do it. But so you think about this though, seriously. Veggies at every meal, fruits and veggies at every meal. Do you get fruits and veggies at every meal? A lot of times when I was counseling patients, I would challenge people to just keep a record of their fruits and vegetables, because I eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. And a lot of times if you actually write it down, you'll find out you're probably not eating as many as you think. And this gentleman here who was saying eat fruits and vegetables at night instead of chips and whatever else most Americans eat, that's a great way to push out some of the stuff that you want to get rid of in your diet, right? Yes. Eating more fruits and vegetables. And I mean, this time of year, I just bought a cantaloupe that is out of this world. Like there's cantaloupe, there's cherries, there's peaches, there's plums, there's so many good choices out there. And really, it's a matter of sort of changing your habits, because a lot of eating is habits. If you think about your life, where does all your food habits come from? Your family, right? Family is very centered around food. So you kind of got to get everybody on board with you, or try to get them on board for a few changes at least. Because if you're trying to do it in your house and you live with 5 other people that don't want to do it, it's not going to be successful. So trying to get people on board with you to make some healthy changes is a good thing. But again, trying to surround yourself with the food you want to eat is a good one. But if you live alone, is it really sensible to go out and buy a whole bunch of fruit that you think might just rot in your so frozen is a good idea. So frozen fruits and vegetables are a great source of nutrition, and it's a great way to make these small changes and have it on hand. All right, I'm getting away from myself. So now the things you want to eat at least 3 servings per week of: beans, lentils, nuts. For some people this might be a big change, so if you are thinking about making this change, I'm going to caution you, when you raise the amount of fiber in your diet, you want to also raise the amount of water you're drinking. Because if you eat too much fiber without enough water, you will get constipated and you will never do it again. So make sure you want to raise the amount of water when you're raising the amount of fiber. And then eating plenty of fish, fish that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, the mackerel, the salmon, the sardines. I know I look around, I think some of you are my mother's generation, maybe she loves her sardines. Sardines can be very salty. The one thing the Mediterranean diet does not really address is salt and sodium. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. The things you want to limit to 1 serving a day: natural cheese. What's a natural cheese? So a ricotta, a mozzarella, a soft mozzarella that's a ball, a feta. So any kind of really natural cheese is a good cheese. You want to stay away from the processed cheeses for lots of reasons. Like an American cheese is a processed cheese. A lot of our cheddars are processed now in this country, so you want to look for, again, the least of ingredients, the least number of additives in your cheese. And I would say if you take anything away from this lecture, stop using grated cheese. If you use grated cheese at the supermarket, they have anti-clumping agents in them to keep them shredded and apart, and those anti-clumping agents are terrible for you. So I like to, this is my joke, so I'm going to make America great again. So we're going to go back to grating cheese and get away from the pre-shredded stuff so that we can get away from those anti-clumping agents. All right, so this is where I become less popular. The things you want to limit to 1 serving a week. And what's a serving size of red meat? 4 ounces. So like the size of my fist, once a week. And is pork a red meat?
No.
Yes, it is.
It's the other white meat.
That's the food industry for you. The food industry is very good at what they do. So pork, ham, all of that is considered red meat. So when you think I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a hamburger, I'm just going to have a hamburger tonight, and you get to the restaurant and it's an 8-ounce hamburger. So what is that? Twice as much. So it's 2 servings of red meat. So now you're done for 2 weeks.
What about a breakfast meat that's good with eggs? Would just ham slices be better than bacon?
Yes, ham slices would be better than bacon, but I caution anybody who has high blood pressure probably should be staying away from ham. And a Canadian bacon would be better than a regular bacon. It goes on down the line. So like the leaner, the better.
Why is yogurt limiting?
Limiting to 1 serving a day. You know, yogurt's one of those things. It's the Mediterranean diet says that should be the limitation on it. I think it's because it's naturally higher in sugar. And one of the key principles of the Mediterranean diet is to really try to keep the sugar in your diet nice and low. Because we know that sugar adds to inflammation in our body, and inflammation is sort of the groundwork of all chronic disease. So trying to really keep that sugar nice and low.
Do you have any mantra that would address what's worse for you, saturated fat or added sugar?
Oh, that's a tough one. Nobody's ever asked me that one before. I like it. What's worse for you, saturated fat or, I would just say you kind of need to limit both, because a little bit of saturated fat isn't going to hurt you. Your body needs fat. I mean, I was a dietitian in the 90s where we used to say everything should be fat-free, but that's not true. We need fat for our brain.
Moderation.
The myelin sheaths in our brain are only created using fat from our diet, so we really need that fat. We need it for our skin, we need it for our hair, so we need the fat. So saturated fat, we probably need maybe a little bit more than sugar, and especially if it's like, just plain processed sugar, like white sugar you're putting in your coffee, or sugar that a manufacturer has added to a product.
So when I go to my refrigerator and I have dark chocolate with very low sugar but very high saturated fat, and I have yogurt, fat-free yogurt but with a lot of sugar in it, okay? Which one is better for me?
Oh, the chocolate. 100% the chocolate, because the chocolate also has the flavonoids. The flavor is a compound that makes the dark color in dark chocolate that is actually very good for you. It's very good for you. It's an antioxidant.
thank you, I like that.
Sure, anytime. Yes.
I'm just wondering, why is red meat so bad for us?
So red meat is very high in saturated fat. And saturated fat is what our body converts to the LDL cholesterol that then causes the plaquing on our arteries that causes blockages and heart disease.
Even if you get like 90 or 93%.
It's much higher in the saturated fat than say a chicken or a turkey. So, yes?
But the Greek yogurt that's plain is very high in protein and very low in sugar.
That would be my choice.
Yeah.
That would be my choice, especially because I think everybody in this room's over 60, with the exception of you and Priya. Once you're over 50, you need more protein just to maintain the muscle mass that you have. And a lot of older Americans do not get enough protein. So that extra protein that you get in Greek yogurt is twice as much protein as regular yogurt. So if you're not using Greek now, I would say maybe give it a try, because it is a great source of protein, and that protein is going to be great for your gut biome, and also really good for making you full and satisfied. There's something about being full and satisfied that comes with a lot of protein in your meal.
And it's not as soupy.
It's not as soupy. It's the same yogurt. It's just got more of the water taken out of it. So. But if you can go plain, that is the way to go with yogurt. Plain is the best. But if you're someone who right now is using like a fruited yogurt, that you have different fruit flavors, that's going to be a huge switch. So maybe what you want to do is do a gentle switch. So you go from the fruited yogurt that has maybe 12 to 15 grams of sugar in it to a vanilla yogurt that has maybe 9 grams of sugar in it, and then maybe you mix the plain yogurt with the vanilla yogurt so that you get some of that flavor. And then maybe instead of doing that, you could also just take the plain yogurt and then add your own berries, add your own nuts, add your own granola, add some cinnamon, add your own natural flavoring to it. And I love to take the frozen fruit in my freezer and take it and put it in a bowl in my refrigerator. And as frozen fruit melts, it gets all like that soupy, juicy stuff. And I love to put that into my yogurt. Yeah. And there's no sugar in it, but it's a lot of flavor.
Just a little bit of honey sweetens up a lot of yogurt.
A little bit of honey. We're not going to go there. Okay, so, and you want to limit no sweets, little or no sweets, sugary drinks. So I love to ask this generation. So when you guys were growing up, how big was a glass of juice? How many ounces? 2 or 4. The glasses were teeny tiny. What do you get when you get a glass of juice now?
8.
It's like 8, 10, 12. That is a lot of sugar. So you want to really, if you're someone who's still a juice drinker, try to go back to those little teeny tiny glasses. Then maybe try to decrease the frequency. Okay. Your palate will change over time if you start to implement some of these changes. So the Mediterranean diet and I differ a little bit here in that they recommend a moderate amount of wine with meals. I say if you don't drink, don't start. But if you do drink, really you want to keep it to about 1 drink a day or less. American Heart Association recommends 1 glass of something for women and 2 for men tops. But I say it really shouldn't be more than 1 for anybody, because once you have more than 1 glass of anything that has alcohol in it, it raises your blood pressure.
Yeah.
So you want to really decrease the amount of alcohol in your life.
Alcohol is considered a carcinogen.
Yes, they're trying to get that. They were trying to get that before the new presidency on the label. Alcohol is a carcinogen. It's a known carcinogen for certain types of cancer, breast being the number 1. Yep. All right, so how do we do this? How are we going to make all these changes? This is a lot of changes. So we're going to make these changes by trying to shoot for 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, which is a half a cup of fruit, or a vegetable serving, which is like a half a cup, depending on the vegetable. And you want to think of it in terms of 2s. You want to have like 2 in the morning, 2 in the midday, 2 in the evening. So, a good way to visualize your plate is that your plate should really be mostly fruits and vegetables. It should have a small amount of starch, and which should be a whole grain, so that brown rice, that quinoa, that farro, or and a small amount of protein, which again can be a plant. It doesn't have to be meat. And then you want to try whole or sprouted grains. This is that list I was talking to you about earlier. So we've got quinoa, farro, barley, buckwheat, brown rice, whole wheat pasta I don't really care for. I would encourage people to try like a lentil pasta or a chickpea pasta. They have a lot more flavor than a whole wheat pasta. And if you're someone who's still eating 100% white pasta and you just really want to try to make a change, I say mix it. You know, take a half a cup of white pasta and half a cup of lentil pasta and mix it together and see if your, you know, because like I said, your palate will change over time if you make some of these changes. We talked a lot about this. I'm going to kind of just keep going because I'm low on time. So again, what I just said, I'm going to emphasize, try to choose a plant-based protein instead of a lean meat protein, because that will, again, will increase your servings of fruits and vegetables. And honestly, that fiber, that increased fiber will lower your risk for cardiovascular disease, for the cancers that we were talking about, and it really assists in weight management by making you feel fuller faster. These are some good examples. And then you want to choose 20 to 30% of your calories should be those healthy unsaturated fats we were talking about. And again, that unsaturated fat actually helps to lower that bad cholesterol I was talking about in the beginning, that LDL cholesterol. It also provides the essential fats that your body needs. We talked about these different types of oils, the canola, the olive oil, the avocados, the almonds. Pumpkin seeds are a great source, peanut butter. The fatty fish, walnuts are the number one nut. People always ask me that. What's the number one nut? Is walnuts. Number two is almonds. Tofu, soybeans, and flaxseed.
Quick question. With regard to tofu and soybeans, I've heard from a number of people that in some cases, unless it's organic, soybean tends to have a lot of petrochemicals in the farming of the product. And so is it better to opt for organic soybean or tofu over just the rest of it?
So this is my take on organic. So organic, if you have the means and ability to buy 100% organic, I would do that. But most people do not. So I would choose organic when it's a product you eat a lot. Like I eat blueberries and raspberries every single day. So I choose organic because I consume so much of them that I feel like, you know, that's where I don't want all those pesticides and all those chemicals in my body. So I know I'm going to eat a lot of those. So I make sure I choose organic there. But if it's something I eat once in a while, then I would like edamame. My kids like edamame, so I will buy that, which is a soybean product. I'll buy those, but we eat them once in a while. We don't eat them every day. So that would be sort of my advice with organic.
You refer to peanut butter, not Skippy in the jar.
So that's a really good point, because all peanut butter is not created equal. The Skippy and the Jif loaded with sugar. So what we all support local, right? Local. So everybody should be eating Teddy's. Yeah. Comes in the glass jar. It really isn't that separated. Made in Everett, right? Everett or Chelsea. It's one of those two. It's been around for 100 years. And you know, you can start, they have a regular salted variety, and you can move down the line to the no salted variety if you can get yourself there with small changes over time. So thank you for that. That's right. So I just want to talk a little bit about sodium, because this is the one aspect that the Mediterranean diet has a lot of olives and things like that tend to be higher in salt. So they don't take a firm stance on the sodium levels, but the American Heart Association sure does. They recommend that you eat 2,300 milligrams or less of sodium a day, and for optimal health, they really recommend 1,500, which is really hard to get to if you're eating any foods that are processed. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about that in a few minutes. The average American eats about 3,400 milligrams, and I think that number is low. From what I've seen, I think that number is low. But if you can cut back by 1,000 milligrams a day, that has a huge impact on your blood pressure and your heart health. So if that's, again, if you're looking for one change to make and you're walking away from this lecture thinking, all right, what one change can I make? Try to cut down the sodium in your diet. It has a big effect on your health, on how much water you retain, the water that's in your interstitial spaces that's like crowding out other good happenings going on in your body. You want to make sure that you are, you're not consuming so much sodium that it's going to put you in some type of imbalance. So you really want to cut down that sodium in your diet. 70% of our sodium comes from packaged prepared foods and restaurant foods, not the salt shaker. A lot of my clients, when I meet with them, will say, well, I don't eat salt, I don't have a salt shaker. I'm like, well, that's usually not where the salt is coming from. And then if you are looking to manage blood pressure, losing weight is sort of like the best kept secret for managing blood pressure. If you lose even a few pounds, that can help bring your blood pressure down. It can actually help bring your cholesterol down. It can help bring your blood sugar down. So trying to maintain that weight if you're at a good weight. But if you're a little overweight, trying to lose a couple pounds, it's even a couple of pounds makes a difference. And then tips to reduce sodium, you want to be aware of the salty six. So again, the food industry, not our friend. Breads, rolls, pizza sandwiches, cold cut soups, burritos, and tacos are the salty six by the American Heart Association. Bread, I'm going to do a little deeper dive. Bread, if you walk out of here today, please go home and look at your bread label and see how much sodium is in there. You'll be surprised. Pizza, they put a lot of salt in the crust of pizza. So, if you have a good pizza place that you get your pizza from on a regular basis that isn't a chain, they might work with you to reduce the sodium in the crust for you. And sandwiches are really tricky. I honestly have a hard time with sandwiches because there is so much sodium in everything in a sandwich. So a piece of bread can have, like a great piece of bread has 70 milligrams of sodium. A terrible piece of bread can have 300 milligrams of sodium. So let's say each slice has 200, that's 400 milligrams of sodium right there. Then you put in 4 ounces of cold cuts, that has 400 to 500 milligrams of sodium depending on the cold cut. Unless you've made it yourself and it's like your home grilled chicken, that's a different story. And cheese naturally has some sodium in it. It's part of the cheese making process. So that's about another 100 to 200 milligrams of sodium. So you're almost at 1,000 milligrams right there. What do you eat with a sandwich? Bag of chips? So you're talking about a 1,500 milligram lunch, and that's the recommendation for optimal health. So you have to be very mindful. A lot of people will walk away from this lecture going, there's no way I can do this. This is overwhelming. There's too many things that are too bad for us. I should just give up. But I like to say, think about your day. Think about your day as a whole when you go to eat. If you know you're going out to dinner that night and you're not going to be in control of the sodium, or if you know you're having pizza with your grandkids, or you're going out to lunch with a friend and you're going to have something that you wouldn't normally make at home, then you want to kind of plan for that. Plan for that higher sodium meal. Have a lower sodium breakfast. Have a lower sodium dinner if you're going to go out to lunch. Same thing. It's your whole day. It's not just one meal. So if you think about it and you try to plan for it, you can be successful. Just some quick numbers. If you're looking at a snack and you're like, is this low sodium? Is it not low sodium? 140 is a good sort of a good place to look at sodium. If it's 140 or less, it's probably an okay snack in terms of sodium. If you're at a restaurant and you have the nutritional information, it should really be less than 400 milligrams, which is hilarious if you go to Chipotle because you won't find anything on the menu. And then you want to really limit that eating out. And then again, limit the alcohol to 1 drink a day if you're a woman, 2 if you're a man, and if you drink less than that, that's great because that drinking just raises the blood pressure. And then we talked a lot about this already. You want to avoid the saturated fats. They come from the red meats, but they also are anything that's solid at room temperature. The one question I get a lot is about coconut oil. Is that really a saturated fat? And it is really a saturated fat. It acts just like, you know, if you were eating red meat in your diet, it raises your LDL cholesterol and causes that plaquing in your arteries. You want to eliminate as many processed foods as you can out of your life. I always say if it comes in a box or a bag, it's a processed food. And then sugar. We really want to raise the awareness of so much of all the sugar that's in our food. There's a lot of sugar in everything. The food industry has 3 things that they put in food to make us like them. What do you think they are? Salt, sugar, and fat. Exactly. Those are the 3 things. So these are the recommendations. So for women, they say 6 teaspoons or 24 grams or less. For men, it's 9 teaspoons or 36 grams or less of sugar a day. And that's a lot. Like if you think about putting 6 teaspoons of sugar into something and then consuming it, like that would be a lot of sugar. But it's easy to get there throughout the day.
What about Equal and Splenda? Can you address those in place of sugar?
So if you're a diabetic, you have to use those products. If you're not, because diabetics have to avoid as much sugar as possible. So they use those artificial sweeteners.
And those are all right.
Those are your words. Those are not my words. I would avoid artificial sweeteners at all costs because they're chemicals. It's a processed chemical. So anything that's processed like that, I would just try to stay away from or just use as little as possible.
What about stevia?
So stevia, they've done a great job advertising that, haven't they? So stevia is a plant, right, that they have processed into an artificial sweetener. So it's probably better than maybe aspartame or one of the other ones, but it's still a processed chemical. So I would, again, limit it. You know, if you're not eating it every day, that's probably, you know, it's, I'm not going to say it's okay, but I would avoid eating it every day. Again, we know that too much sugar can increase that bad cholesterol and decrease your good cholesterol. So it not only raises the bad, but it lowers the good. So you really want to limit the amount of sugar. And again, it leads to the inflammation that we know is the building block for all chronic disease. It leads to weight gain, and it can increase your triglycerides, which is just the fat circulating in your bloodstream. And so when we eat out, we want to eat out mindfully. I like people to really, you know, when you go to eat out, make a plan. Look at the menu before you go. Because a lot of times if you eat out, maybe that's your one drink. For me, that's when I have my one drink of the week. If I go out to eat, I'll have a drink. And if I have a drink, my thinking gets a little foggier, right? So I like to have a plan going in. So I look at the menu before I go, and I say, all right, this looks good, this looks good, this looks good. I think I can do this. And so I go in with a plan, and my plan always includes some fresh greens and fruits. I order dressings and sauces on the sides as well as condiments because they are loaded with sugar and salt. A lot of people don't realize that, but those condiments, especially like ketchup, all ketchup has high fructose corn syrup in it. Not all ketchup, but most ketchup, and most ketchup that you get in restaurants does. So I try to avoid those condiments if you can, or use them sparingly. And then the same with the dressings, the sauces, they tend to be higher in fat. You could split a meal with a friend. You could ask your server if there are lower salt alternatives or if they can make an entree a little bit lighter. They're very accommodating now, most places. If you go to a restaurant that's more of a made-to-order restaurant. Chain restaurants can't really accommodate you very easily, but trying to choose a restaurant that's more of a made-to-order food instead of a chain is a good tip. And then, you know, kind of stick to the basics. Grilled, baked, or roasted. Anything that's like a casserole, you have no idea what else is in there. And usually there's a lot of butter and things that make it taste really good, so that you eat the whole thing. So that's kind of a double whammy there. So you want to eat out mindfully. And then whenever we're shopping, we want to look at the label. So when you look at the label, the first thing you want to check is the serving size. So do you see it up there? So the serving size on this is what? Somebody shout it out.
2/3 of a cup.
2/3 of a cup. And how many servings are in this product?
8.
8. So if you eat the whole thing, you got a lot of math ahead of you, right? So make sure you do the math, especially if you know, like a bag of chips. A lot of times if you buy like the bigger bag, it's 2 servings, it's 3 servings, it's 4 servings. So you got to look at that label, see how many servings are in that bag. And let's look at the sodium. What is the sodium on this product? Did anybody see it?
7%.
So 160 milligrams. Because does 7% help you? No. So think about the milligrams. What were the milligrams? It was 1,500 milligrams for optimal health, and 2,300 milligrams is the standard recommendation. So if you think about it in terms of where am I already in my sodium day. So it's 160 milligrams for 1 serving. If you're only going to eat 1 serving, that's great. But if you're going to eat 2, that's 320. So you may want to think twice about eating 2 versus 1. And then let's look at the fiber. It's got 4 grams of fiber, so that's okay. That's a pretty good source of fiber. Anything over 3 is okay. And then sugar. How many? So sugar has changed on the label in the last, I think, 5 years. Total sugar is 12 grams on this product, and then included sugar is 10 grams. Does anybody find that confusing? It's very confusing. So the total sugar, that's the total amount in the product. The included sugar is what the food industry has put in your food. So there may be 2 grams of naturally occurring sugar, and that's the difference. So is that clear? Did I say that clearly? Do you understand? Okay. So you want to make sure that, when you're, so this is, I would consider this a processed food, because anything that's got 10 grams of sugar added to it is highly processed. So you want to think about all of these things when you're looking at the label, but I have help for you. I like to pick on bread because bread is so easy to pick on, but these are just 2 different breads that I found. This one has 115 milligrams of sodium per slice and only 50 calories. And this one over here has 260 milligrams per slice, and it has 140 calories. So bread can be very different. So make sure you look at your bread label, because most people eat bread every day. Those things that you eat every day, if you can bring down the sodium and bring up the fiber, that's going to have a big impact on your diet and your health.
Question?
Oh, yeah.
Is there a conversion from grams or milligrams to teaspoons or tablespoons?
Not a good one.
Help us to get
It's, people always say that to me, and it's what you should do. I mean, if you really want to measure, you should weigh. Weighing things is the easiest way to really measure it. But I mean, you can look it up. If you look up number of tablespoons to ounces, you can get a conversion.
Because I was thinking more in terms of the carbohydrates and sugars, which the sugar, especially the added sugar, tends to be inflammatory or lead over years to like metabolic syndrome. And so I was wondering if there was something more consumer friendly that we could see in the market, or we could bring with us to the market too.
So that's why I was going to tell you about this. So if you are interested in this app, Priya and I can help you download it. It's called Yuka, and it's great because it makes it a lot easier. You can use it to scan the barcodes of foods, and it was actually invented to look at the different ingredients in shampoos and lotions and laundry detergents and things like that, but then they extended it to food because it was so popular, and they've done a pretty good job. I don't like that they're very judgy, like the red is bad, the orange is okay, the green is good. Like the judgment isn't necessary, but it does kind of show you right away. Like Lucky Charms, big surprise, it got a 5 out of 100, so they consider it bad. And what is the worst thing about it? The sugar. It's too sweet. It's got 37 grams. It's also got a number of additives, and if you click on this, it will tell you what the additives are. But if you don't care about that, that's fine. But you're looking, all right, so I love my Lucky Charms, I need an alternative. So if you scroll down to the bottom, it will give you a whole list of alternatives. that are healthier. So it's a great app if you're willing to use it. You have to, it's kind of a lot of work at first, but what I say is like go to the store and pick one item or two items that you're going to work on today. Like I'm going to go to the store today and I'm going to look at bread and I'm going to look at cereal. And I'm going to find the ones that I think are the best based on my app or based on what Jane said in the lecture. And I'm going to look at those labels carefully and I'm going to figure it out. And then the next day maybe I'll try next time I go to the store I'll try something else. I'll look for, I don't know, I'll look for the best, I don't know, peanut butter. And I'll read the labels on all the peanut butter. But don't try to do it all at once. It's overwhelming. This lecture is a little overwhelming as I stand up here giving it. My husband would say, oh my God, you read too much, you say too much. He's like, he's always on me that he's like, you just know too much about this stuff. But this app actually is, I found it very helpful. There's another app called Fujike that's helpful, but this one is free. The Fujike there's a free version of it, but it's not that helpful. There's a pay for version that is a little more helpful, but I really like the Yuka app. I find it very easy to use. So if you want some help downloading it, I'm happy to help. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up though because I'm getting short on time. Yes? Last question?
Does good exercise help you?
All exercise helps you. We did a bad thing by sitting here for a whole hour. Sitting is the new smoking. You shouldn't sit for more than 30 minutes at a time.
Like if you walk up around the block.
Yeah, I work with a nurse practitioner in endocrinology sometimes. We do a lecture together, and she has educated me that now there's new research. If you have diabetes, even if you walk for 2 minutes after you eat, you can really help lower your blood sugar. So if you just get up and walk around your house for 5 minutes after you eat, you're helping your body lower your blood sugar.
There you go.
So, I mean, small things make a big difference. So they say that, you know, that walk after dinner is a great idea.
Yeah.
And if you can't get out of your house, even just walking around in your house is a good idea.
You know, they serve lunch here. I mean, you know, and I often wondered if anybody has ever looked at the contents of what we're eating.
I don't know the answer to that.
I know, you don't put you on the spot.
I don't know. Priya, do you want to hand out the handout? So I have a handout about the Mediterranean diet, and I also am giving you a handout that has resources. It has cookbooks for plant-based, for diabetes, for heart disease, that are very specific to those things. There's websites that can help you. There's Fork Over Knives is a good one. Love and Lemons, it's also listed on there. You can sign up for a weekly newsletter from them if you want recipe ideas. There's a lot of great recipe books on this resource list as well. So there's a lot of help out there. You just have to kind of go find it. But I like signing up for the newsletters because it comes in my inbox on Monday, and one of them gives you a recipe, like this is your weekly menu plan. They give you recipes for the whole week. So that's kind of nice. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and Priya's handing out the handouts, and we'll see you guys again soon.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
If you guys anybody wants help with the app, I'm happy to help.
I was just wondering why the app requires your email.
I don't know. I've given them my email. They've never emailed me.